Until episode 1122, the anime has adapted the manga up to the end of chapter 1088, so episode 1123 will start adapting the manga from chapter 1089, where the people of Dawn Island are discussing the news about Luffy and Garp's recent feats. And in the article about Garp, they note that the Vice Admiral has not been officially declared dead after his disappearance in Hachinosu, and Woop Slap assures everyone that Garp is well, because he's a legend, and Makino agrees with him. And after that, Woop Slap hears someone laughing and yells in the direction of the sound, but soon apologizes when he realizes it's Makino's son, who has already become familiar with Luffy's face because of the photos in the newspapers. And elsewhere, on Mount Kalubo, Dodon reacts with tears to the news, while Dogra and Magra begin to feel the ground trembling. An earthquake of unprecedented scale is then seen occurring around the world, with its ramifications being felt in many places. But the importance of this event will go unnoticed, as no one has been able to identify its epicenter, the destruction of the Kingdom of Lulusia, which took place 6 days ago. When a ship sent to investigate the destruction of Lulusia arrives on the scene, it finds no trace of the kingdom, only an immense hole in the ocean, resembling a circular waterfall. The earthquake has caused the sea level to rise by approximately 1 meter, resulting in the partial or complete flooding of several islands, and Woop Slap watches the turbulent waves from Fuchsia Village, confused as to what is happening. Meanwhile, the naval fleet receives news of the rising water level as it approaches Egghead, and it is said that this fleet is far superior to a buster call, consisting of more than 100 ships, including 20 warships and a total of 30,000 sailors. The operation is led by 9 vice admirals and Admiral Kizaru, who is aboard one of the ships, communicating with Sentomaru via a Denden Mushi. Sentomaru reprimands Kizaru for having destroyed one of the sea beast weapons, despite it having attacked first, and then Kizaru asks Sentomaru if he can surrender and come back with them. But Sentomaru warns that he will retaliate if Kizaru continues attacking, and reminds Kizaru that Vegapunk modeled the Pacifista's lasers based on the research he did on his powers, and expresses disbelief at the fact that they are now trying to eliminate him. But Kizaru replies that studying the lost century is a crime that even he can't defend, and that he's only following orders. Yet he still admits that a battle wouldn't be in their interest, as any destruction would cause losses for the world government. Kizaru's presumption that CP0 has failed in its mission, which Sentomaru confirms by saying that it was the result of interference from the Straw Hat Pirates. And inside one of the warships, Saturn, accompanied by Vice Admiral Doberman, as well as several other guards, asks that no one be informed about his presence, while he reads the headline of the article in the newspaper. Doberman informs that it was the work of Morgans, leading Saturn to demand the truth, so Doberman explains that they have not yet received confirmation that CP0 completed their mission. But with Sentomaru continuing to defend the island, they can assume that Dr. Vegapunk, his satellites, the Seraphim, the Straw Hats, who are supposedly allies of Vegapunk, and the trio of CP0 agents are all on Laba phase. But apparently the other Cypherpol agents were trapped in the Faberia phase by Sentomaru and his Pacifista Mark III units. And since the Borderline Dome is fully active, they are certain that no one can enter or leave the Laba phase, but they also have no way of knowing what happened there in the last 24 hours. Then Saturn asks about the location of the research team and technicians on the island, and Doberman responds that they escaped the previous day, but the coordinates of the ships are being tracked. However, not wanting to risk them escaping in case they know too much, Saturn orders the ships to be sunk. And after that, Doberman informs Saturn about the presence of Jewelry Bonnie on the island, but despite knowing that she is Kuma's daughter, Saturn minimizes her importance and says they can leave her. Changing scenes, Kizaru is informed about a signal detected from Egghead, whose call is also being intercepted in Mary Jawiz by the other members of the 5 Elders. York identifies herself as the person on the line and demands to know why they are trying to kill her along with the others, since it was she who informed about the betrayal of Stella Vegapunk, and Mars responds that she is no different from the real Vegapunk. But York retorts that she would not have revealed her interest in the Lost Century if she really cared about him. And when asked by Nushiru about the situation of CP0 and the Straw Hats, York said she would let them guess and claims that, as she is the only one who managed to make contact after the previous night and has the Seraphim on her side, she is doing well. Next, York asks about the fleet surrounding the island and if this is a declaration of war, but Jupiter reveals that they have changed their minds and want her to recreate the maternal flame, and although does not know exactly who wants the weapon, York confirms that it can be made at the island's plant on the condition that they do not harm her or cause damage to the laboratory, something that Mars agrees to, along with York's request to become a world noble. And after the agreement is closed to the shock of Kizaru and the Elders, York begins to cry and begs to be saved from being killed by Luffy. York is chained to the ground, surrounded by the Straw Hats, as well as Bonnie, Vegapunk, and Lucci with Zoro's sword positioned on her neck, while Usopp, who is no longer petrified, makes the call. Next, Nami and Vegapunk begin to understand the gravity of the situation, while Luffy, without fully comprehending what is happening, assumes that they should escape using York as a shield, and then Bonnie realizes that this was indeed a siege incident. And shortly after, Luffy contacts the five elders, and after introducing himself and confirming that he and his crew are allies of Dr. Vegapunk, Luffy says that if they are concerned about York's safety, they should withdraw their fleet from the coast. And then Mars asks Luffy who is currently alive with him in the lab phase. But when Luffy is about to speak, Robin forces him to stop, saying that they cannot give the enemy any information about their current state. And Luffy apologizes and says that the Marines will now retreat. However, Usopp rebukes him, telling him to stop dreaming, and changing scenery, Saturn says that they need to protect York, the punk records, and the plant necessary to produce the Mother Flame, and that everything else is expendable. But Doberman reminds them that several of the Cypher Paul agents are still on the island. However, Saturn explains that he is considering the worst-case scenario, so they need to prioritize the security of the most important things, and adds that Doberman should not consider humans different from insects, as if their numbers decrease, they will be reconstituted over time, and then Doberman accepts Saturn's wishes. And back in the lab phase, York tells everyone that if they hurt her now that she has made an agreement with the world government, Egghead will be completely destroyed just like Ohara. But her words earn her a blow to the head from Nami. And while Zoro tries to calm Nami down, Chopper asks Robin if her injuries have healed, and she confirms that they have. And changing the scene, Kaku is seen resting from his own injuries, while Luffy and Bonnie are eating, and Usopp is trying to make contact with the underground. Lucci notes that Shaka and Pythagoras have been destroyed, and Lilith, Edison, and Atlas are severely injured. And then Kaku asks what he is doing, and Lucci simply says that he is talking to himself. Usopp then manages to communicate and asks the now free Cypher Paul agents if they are alright. As the Straw Hats and their allies have provided the agents with food, most of them are deeply grateful and ask to be released, but Usopp says this isn't possible, and then they just ask to be kept away from the Seraphim. But Usopp explains that they are safe because the four Seraphim have been contained in bubbles that have the same properties as Kairoseki. And S-Snake tells the agents that none of the Seraphim have been ordered to kill them, so they don't need to be afraid of them, which relieves the agents. Frankie then thanks Essie Snake for freeing them, while Dr. Vegapunk wonders why she did that since he never programmed her to act that way. And then it is revealed that Luffy crossed paths with Essie Snake, mistook her for Hancock, and asked her to free his friend, which he did because she somehow inherited Hancock's genuine love for Luffy, which leaves Dr. Vegapunk intrigued. And subsequently, Luffy thanks Essie Snake once again, and she misinterprets this as a love confession, very similar to what the real Hancock would have done. Meanwhile, Atlas tells Dr. Vegapunk that she still cannot open the borderline door, which means they are still trapped, and then York arrogantly tells them that she has blocked everything with a password that she did not share with any of them. And then Stussy tells Dr. Vegapunk that they are surrounded while he speaks with Nami, telling her that they should follow one of the directions that his log post recorded in Wano. And Nami realizes that one of the needles is pointing northeast of Egghead, and to the delight of Luffy and Usopp, Dr. Vegapunk says that this leads to Elbaf, and comments that their luck is that their ship is in the lava phase stratum, but since the entire coast is blocked by marine ships, they will not be able to exit that way and need to go northeast to the other side of the island, where there are not many ships blocking them. Additionally, Vegapunk also says that the Vega Force 01 can potentially take them, as well as their ship, beyond the blockade, but the flight can only be done within Egghead's airspace. However, Frankie tells him that they can use the Thousand Sunny's coup de burst ability to carry them the rest of the way, which intrigues Dr. Vegapunk. Atlas admits that the plan is solid, but reminds them that the Frontier Dome will not let them leave, and York once again states that they will never get her password. But to her misfortune, Vegapunk, Atlas, and Edison begin to work on trying to decipher the code. And as for Lilith, she was given the task of commanding the Vega Force 01 and began heading towards the robot accompanied by Luffy, Bonnie, and Frankie. And changing scenes, Saturn and the fleet are notified about the situation on the island by Lucci, who has somehow managed to contact him. The Five Elders member asks Kizaru if he can simply pass through the Frontier Dome with his powers, and Kizaru says that it may be possible, but the guard protecting the dome is his friend, and Saturn tells him to just ignore him. However, Kizaru rebuts, saying that he can't ignore a man so determined to do his duty, as it would go against his own ideals, and adds that if they start the attack, Sentomaru will likely order the Sea Beast weapons and pacifistas to retaliate. The Five Elders member then asks about the plant, and Kizaru admits that Lucci is clever, as he has provided them with all the necessary information. And then the ships go into battle formation, with the Rokushiki users being put on standby as the attack will begin shortly, while the bombardment unit is instructed to target the Sea Beast weapons instead of the pacifists. And so when Luffy's group arrives at the Thousand Sunny and the Vega Force 01, Kizaru uses Yata no Kagami to reach the island and attacks Sentomaru, and at that moment Luffy senses a tremendous power and declares that someone very strong is arriving. And if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and I'll see you soon.